And good evening now. We begin tonight with DJJ, where there are continued accusations of employees with inadequate training, too few employees, and an increase in violence involving inmates and staff. Tonight, we're taking a closer look behind the fence at the facility ahead of a meeting tomorrow, where lawmakers are scheduled to review a recent audit of the agency. Jenna Krasina has details on the findings of that report and the calls for change.
The children behind the fence are running the prison. The children are in charge, and they know it.
Reported issues at the State Department of Juvenile Justice first started to come to light after a riot in 2016. Officials at the time with DJJ reported juveniles stole cars, escaped through drainage grates, and set fires at the Broad River Road facility during the disturbance. When lawmakers heard from the agency after the riot, they learned the majority of female officers were not equipped with any weapons and SLED was never called. This was the start to conversations about retention, pay increases, and high turnover rates at DJJ, among other issues. Since then, lawmakers continue to look into what changes need to be made at the facility. Among the lawmakers, Senator Katrina Shealy, and she is just one of several who want the Attorney General's office to investigate the department.
Since we've become involved, we are learning more every day.
Marsha Lindsay, the Deputy Director of the Legislative Audit Council, says in the 2017 audit they were mainly trying to figure out what security issues there were at the facility.
We had 74 recommendations for improvement. We looked at things like turnover, use of funds, other services provided to the juveniles in that 2017 audit. And we did find, though, in that audit that was published in January 2017, that the agency may not be adequately prepared for any other major disturbance. So that was like the primary finding of that. We also found that DJJ's juvenile correctional officers, or JCOs, were not being properly trained. And that's an ongoing issue.
The same issues they found 3 years later in the most recent, almost 200-page audit. Lindsay says they also made more recommendations, 101 to be exact, including the average number of recorded incidents per month has more than doubled since 2017.
What we have found, primarily the overriding finding of this report, is that DJJ does not maintain sufficient security staff to ensure the safety of the youth in its custody or its own staff at the secure facilities.
During the audit process, Lindsay says they visit the facility, conduct surveys among the DJJ staff, and interview staff about everything from job satisfaction to security and other safety issues.
People were telling me that they were scared to go to work. People who'd worked there for years. And people also told us they were just really scared that somebody was going to end up dying because of the security or the lack thereof.
Several other findings from the 2020 audit show issues with training, employee compensation and retention, not providing timely, appropriate medical care for juveniles, and financial issues. Lindsay says observations during tours in 2019 showed certain areas were not staffed, and now Shealy says she's worried for both the staff and children, which the report shows 57% of staff who work with youth daily say they don't feel safe.
In a short period of time, there's going to be bigger problems out there. Somebody's going to get killed or seriously injured. It's going to take a miracle to fix what's out there right now.
The audit shows in 2016, DJJ had 1,367 employees. That number had dropped to 1,229 employees in 2020. That's a loss of 138 employees.
They have been steadily losing correctional officers.
According to the audit, correctional officers and law enforcement officer positions were the most impacted.
Without proper security, nothing else can really function properly. You can't get the kids proper educational services, medical care. It's a vulnerable population, and it's something that really needs to be improved for these youth.
After the 2017 audit was released, the former DJJ director, Sylvia Murray, resigned. Then Freddie Pugh took over as director. He responded to the most recent follow-up report in 10 pages, saying he had several areas of disagreement. One of his responses reads in part, DJJ is committed to continuing these improvements, including a number of those recommended by LAC, and will defer to the General Assembly for guidance with regard to recommendations that may require additional funding or legislative authorization. Pugh noted issues with funding several times in an interview related to the audit earlier this month on May 5th with News 19. Pugh said he feels the audit needed more context to explain the findings, but plans to be involved in moving forward and making necessary improvements.
These efforts that we are continuing to make are efforts that began back in 2018. There's a number of initiatives that we've already started to work on to improve things here at DJJ. But again, we came into the agency with things being a little rough and needing some adjusting. And so it's going to take some time, but we're dedicated to working with the General Assembly and all other external partners to make things better, not only for the young people, but for staff as well. Because we want staff and young people to be in the best environment possible.
The director also said he is hopeful to get help from the General Assembly to attract more officers. According to the state executive budget for 2020-2021, a grand total of $147,223,555 was appropriated for DJJ. In the audit, Lindsay says the agency never used funds to give raises to the officers.
DJJ's entry-level correctional officers are paid approximately $2,600 less than the Department of Corrections. But the Department of Corrections has steadily gone to the General Assembly and requested funding just for that. Now, the DJJ has asked for funding for that, and it has not been funded. But the difference, something that we point out in our report, is that when they had some funds available, they did not put those funds toward the juvenile correctional officers, the essential critical positions of the agency. They gave raises to other folks.
Pugh says the agency has been working on hiring and retaining officers.
We understand that there's strength in numbers, and we're trying to do all we can to increase our numbers.
But ultimately, the goal is to make the agency stronger and care for the needs of both employees and incarcerated children in the state's care.
Children are still children. They need guidance and they need love.
If you don't have proper security and properly trained employees, they're not going to get the services they need, and they're not going to be cared for in an appropriate manner. To rehabilitate them and to get them ready to go back and engage with the community.
In Columbia, Jenna Kurzina, News 19 WLTX.
Well, a hearing with the director of DJJ is set for tomorrow morning. News 19 also confirmed the Attorney General's office is reviewing the audit report, and they will make a determination if an investigation is necessary.